Cindy Cherry. I'm, I'm also known as Dawn's daughter.
That's what you're known as.
Sister of Tim and mother of our, what do you call you, Adele? My son is the producer of the show. Anyway, welcome to this week's podcast. And Dad, before we get started, I just wanted to bring up that I don't know if many people know out there, I like to think they do, that you have started a pet rescue foundation.
No, you started.
Oh, well, we say that's politically correct to say you started, because it's called Dawn Cherry's Pet Rescue Foundation and all. So we started let's bring it back to, like most people out there in their isolation, self-isolation, or you want to call it because of the plague, you were cleaning out your closets. And
I was in there, to tell you the truth, I was going back to get some beer. That's
and
where
you had to wade through.
And I didn't wade through there. I got them hanging nice. They're very nice.
Yes.
And
organized.
Organized and beautiful. And closets all full.
And so you came to me.
I came to Cindy and I said, Cindy, I've got some pretty nice jackets here and I don't wear them anymore. And you come up with the idea that to raise money to help our friends, the dogs and the pets. I go drive by and I see a donkey in a farm, a couple of donkeys. I know you help everybody, and it was your idea, so you take over.
Okay.
And you're doing pretty good.
All right, thank you. So I said, yep, I think we could get some money for these shirts and ties and cufflinks. And your shirts are as famous.
Ties, yeah.
Yeah, and ties. So Johnny at the Coop, this is, he stepped up because he's sponsoring it. That's Johnny at the Coop, and he has been your tailor for years. And we dreamed up saying, let's have an auction, your ensembles, we call them, and call it Coach's Closet. So Johnny stepped right up to the plate. Now, he's the owner of the Coop, and you've known him for many, many years, haven't you?
I've been with him a long time, I remember the day that they didn't fit right, and I told him they didn't fit right, and when I was driving home, I said, gee, I'm kind of ashamed of myself. I reverted back to when I was coaching. I was very upset that they didn't fit right. And
you like your jackets?
I like them to fit perfect. And that's why one of the reasons that people used to watch Coach's Corner, because they fit perfect. And these ones look terrible.
Wasn't it something with the rope shoulders? You like the rope?
I like rope shoulders, and I hate to say it, women wear rope shoulders, and that's why it made them different. And I like double-breasted, and you
like them tight.
I like them tight. I like the shirts tight. Funny thing is, I haven't been getting dressed up lately, and I go to church, and when I put on one of those shirts, I say, these things are uncomfortable.
So it's all what you get used to. Is that what you're saying?
So we're making some pretty good dough.
Well, get back to Johnny. I remember I said to Johnny, we got to make this. It's as I said, it's a website, and you go and it's an online auction for Dad's items.
Eugene Melnick was.
Yeah, I was talking to Eugene, and he says he's going to buy some. He's a big supporter of your foundation. He was telling me about his Rhodesian Ridgebacks, and he's a big animal lover, so he's donated to the foundation. But I was talking to Johnny about you, and he says, I've seen your dad. Because I said to him, Johnny, we got to do this right. If this isn't first class, if I don't get all the bugs out of this, I'm going to hear it. And I says, I don't know if you've seen Dad. And he says, I've seen your dad. I says, has he reverted to his hockey ways and talking to you? He goes, yeah, I've seen that side of him. So he knew that this online auction had to go well. And
well, it is going well, eh? You're making
it is going well. If you go to the coopinc.ca and look it up, it's really going well. So you paid, and we always say 100% of the money of your winning bid goes to the animals, 100%. Goes to the foundation, because you foot the bill for the whole expense of getting it going and all. So
I did?
Yeah, you did. It was one of those deals where you did a deal and this a deal, and they put the money toward it. It's one of these complicated.
Well, it's limited. How many jackets do you have?
It's 12 jackets.
And we've got a bunch of bids, so they're running out. So if you're interested, better hurry up.
That's right. That's right. And you signed everything. You will
I
sign
signed it.
sign the shirt. You're also going to you get a shirt. You sign the shirt.
I signed the shirt.
You're going to sign the tie. Sign the jacket.
And you know what? What I'll do? I'll give to everybody that bids.
Not everyone. The winning. We call it the winning bid.
Yeah, not the winning. Whoever wins the jacket, I will give. Not if they want it anymore. I get a beautiful picture of Blue and I. You know that picture?
Yeah, they'll do a customized picture.
Yeah, and I'll send along with the jackets. How's that?
That sounds
Personally.
Personalized to Johnny or whoever, Jimmy or whoever gets the winning bid.
Yeah.
So please check it out. As I said, the animal rescues, Dad, are having a hard time.
Well, everybody's having a tough time.
Well, they can't do their fundraising events, right? Because of all the plague and everything. So they're really suffering. So we distribute all the money. It comes in and it goes out. So please check it out. Okay. So I did my spiel.
You did your
So now
spiel.
we get back to hockey.
All right. Well, first of all, let's say I've got, from what I understand, it's pretty complicated. Tim, you can help me. The training camp starts July 13th.
That's what they're hoping for. Yeah.
That's what they're hoping for. They're hoping for all this. August, I think 11th, the playoffs start. And they start in Edmonton and Toronto.
Yep. Edmonton, Toronto won the bids. I
Well,
guess.
for a lot of reasons.
Right.
Well, one reason that we're the best, we're better at the virus or whatever they call it.
Right.
And the Canadian dollar.
Yeah.
And I heard Tom Anselmi talking about Edmonton. Holy smokes. How could you not go to Edmonton?
Yeah, we from what we understand, Tom was a big driving force, making sure that Edmonton got
He was
And you know Tom Anselmi, he's a close friend of the Cherry family because of what he did for the Rose Cherries Home for Kids.
I will never forget the time. Well, I'll tell you the whole story. I got a call from him one time, and they were having trouble with the union down at the what do you call it?
Building the ACC.
What do they call it now? Not Air
Scotia
Bank.
Arena,
Scotia Arena.
where the Leafs play.
Where the Leafs play.
Where the Leafs play. Anyhow, there was no seats in it, and he says, "Look, we're having a little time with the union. Would you come down? All the union guys like you, and would you come down and have your picture taken for the Toronto Star or somebody?" And I remember the suit, and it was raining, and it was all mud and outside and everything. And I remember I had a terrific headache that day, and I went up and I had to wear rubber boots. Imagine. So I go up inside. There's no seats. There's nothing in there, and I had the picture taken. This is something. And it's a long story, but I'm going to tell it anyhow. I get back in the car. I get my boots off, and I get them and all mud and everything around there.
In your car too.
Oh, and my
wouldn't like
beautiful
that.
Lincoln, my 1983 Mark 6. Anyhow, I get in the car. And I hear a tap at the window. It's Tom. He says, "I hate to tell you this, Grapes. The guy didn't have film in the camera or something. You have to do it again." Oh, geez. I got to get in the boots again. I get up there, and they had a picture. It was a nice picture. Me, the whole thing, the hard hat on. So I said, "Okay, Tom, I did you a favor. Now, I had 2 season seats. And to make a long story short, that's a pretty good story. So he says, "Okay." He says, I take 4. And I was pretty good of him to do that. I guess I can say that now because he's gone. And
So you got a total of 6 then, right?
yeah. Well, then he came to me and he says, "Look, there's a row there." I said, "I want the front row Reds."
First
right
row
across.
Reds.
Yeah, and
A lot of leg room.
Eh?
A lot of leg room.
Yeah, and it was beautiful. So I phoned about a week later, a week or something like that later, and I could tell there was something funny going on. I said, "Let me speak to Tom," and his secretary says, "Well, no." I said, "Let me speak to Tom." I said, "Tom, a promise is a promise." All right. And this is what happened. This is hard to believe, folks. This is what happened. I don't know if I should be telling this, but I'm telling you. The family that had the ticket that was first.
The season seat holders were in order of how long they had the tickets.
Yes, and these people
got to pick.
were in there before Conn Smythe had them. So anyhow, and believe it or not, they picked the same seats.
Well, our seats are very good because they're one row above the glass and they're
Anyhow,
on the curve. There's just science
Well, that's
to
where
get
the
good
scouts
seats.
sit all the time.
That's
You
it's
can
a
see the
science.
benches. You can see
Yeah.
how the kids act on the benches and players acting. So I says, a promise, Tom. And he's okay. So he went to the people and he said, I don't know, this I promise. And they were too happy. But they went the exact opposite seats. And they took the 6 seats then. And I've never been in the seats, to tell you the truth.
Oh, they're good seats, Dad.
They're good?
Yeah, your best money can buy. They're very good.
Yeah, and expensive.
And expensive.
So anyhow, how did I get into that?
Well, Tom Anselmi, just let me tell you
Tom
about
Anselmi,
my version of Tom Anselmi. Why I like him is because we were on a campaign to open up Rose Cherry's Home for Kids.
Let me just tell you first about the Rose Cherry Farm, and then you can. I remember us driving. I think I said it before, but I'm going to tell it again. I remember us driving to Fort Erie, and I posed the winner of the horse or something like that all day.
It was a fundraiser.
Like a jerk. And I said, how much we make, Cindy? You said $1,500. I said, oh, good. By the year 3000, we should have this paid.
Yeah,
anyhow, we worked and we bought this home out in the middle of a beautiful home.
Yep.
And we thought we were going to
convert it. It was going to be, and it is a hospice for chronically ill and palliative care for children.
Anyhow, we tedded. You came to me and said, bad news, Dad. What is it? We have to tear the house down. So I drove out. We had a hole in the ground, and we're $50,000 in the hole.
Yeah.
And I said, Cindy, I don't think we're doing very good on this.
Correct.
And then you met. Some reason we were down at the Air Canada Center. I guess. No,
what happened was he says, where are we with this? We're like 4 or 5 years into it, and we still don't have a building. The budget, we had who was going to build it. It was just an ongoing saga. You just couldn't believe. And I practically one time came to you in tears, and I said, we've accepted all this money from fundraising people, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And you made a call to Tom Anselmi. He said, I want this done. He had it in. He used to work for PCL.
I don't know what he's done with the PCL.
PCL, he made a call to them, and they called me up and said, how much do you want to spend? I said, the budget is $3.5 million. They said, we'll build it for that amount of money. And that's how we got the Rose Cherry's Home for Kids built.
Yeah, but it was down at the Scotiabank that he called all the guys together, and he said, this is, and I remember him standing up and Tom. Now, he is the, and I heard him on the fan. And he was talking about, how could you not go to Edmonton? You could actually, with that building, what's it called again?
I think that's Rogers Center or Rogers something.
You're Rogers Center. Rogers Place, I think it is. Yeah. You could have them not leave the whole building and stay right in there. But you were saying, Tim, there's a lot of rinks around there.
Yeah, it was the one thing that I was listening to. They were talking about it, that they said there's like 5 rinks within the area. Yeah. And you're saying like Toronto, like they'll get the MasterCard Center, which isn't too far from or the least the arena, and they have like five pad.
2 months they're going to have these guys locked up, I guess. I mean,
are they sequestered? Is that the word?
Yes.
Sequestered? Is that
sequestered,
the word? Yeah. What does that mean?
I do in jury duty. I learned that word.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, to be 2 months?
Not 2 months. Well,
I mean,
I did it one day. It was too many.
Yeah.
Too much.
Well, after the first round, more than half the teams will be gone. So,
I know the Blues right now, St. Louis Blues, they closed their arena for the practices because some of their players have got it.
Yeah, and that's why they say they're hoping and all that, and they don't. They were saying that if a player gets it, he can't play, and they're still kind of working that all out. So
they can bring 50 players. No, 50 people. Let's see. There's 20. There'd be about 25 players, so there'd be 25 floaters going along, and. I just can't see it. I hope, believe me, I hope it works, but I don't know. Boy, keeping players 2 months together, it's pretty tough.
So you think it'll be tougher for them to win the Stanley Cup in a normal year?
I think it will be. And let's see. I wrote a few things down. The NHL players. By the way, they agreed to 3 years contract, which is pretty good. I mean that.
With the CBA?
Yeah, CBA, and which is pretty good. And they're going to keep the salary cap at 81.5. Imagine 81. That's million, by the way, 81 million. So I don't know. It's going to be. Believe me, if they win this, whoever wins the Stanley Cup, are they going to asterisk or something? But believe me, if they win the Stanley Cup.
Okay, so can I ask a basic question? Is it a tournament? Is it a round robin?
No,
What is it?
It's just going to be like a normal. It's going to be like a normal playoffs.
Except it's 3 out of 5.
It's for the first one. It's 3 out of 5, and then it's best. And then they just. Then it's just a regular 4 out of 7 series.
I don't understand it. If all these guys are sick, are they going to still keep playing?
No, from what I read and what I've been hearing on the radio and stuff, that if a player's sick, he can't play.
Well, right off the bat, does that mean that Matthews can't play?
Well, if they test him and he's clear of the virus, then he can come back and play. That's again, it's still they're still kind of working all that stuff out. I know the one thing though, all the players are happy. On July 1st, they all got their bonuses.
Yeah, they're all happy like that.
Marner
and they're unhappy though that they didn't go. I think some of them are unhappy they didn't go to Vegas.
Yeah,
Imagine keep it. So anyhow, they're supposed to be in a bubble. That's what they call it, the bubble. And good luck to them. It's going to be tough like that. Toronto plays Columbus right off the bat. They don't have to play Boston.
No, but if whoever wins is going to play Boston.
Boston, yeah.
Well, I think anyway. It's again like there's so many stuff that you hear conflicting stories.
How about Boston ends up first spot? I hate to interrupt, but end up first spot. They could end up in 4th.
Yeah, they got to play. They got to play a little tournament, and it's all.
That doesn't seem fair.
No, it doesn't. That's why Bruce Cassidy is. I mean, he said we worked 63 games to make first place, and we can end up 4th. But and they have to. Nothing you can do about it. It's all confused right now. But pretty soon they'll open up.
Just drop the puck and everything will be good.
Drop the puck, and I don't want to confuse anybody, but I'm confused myself right now. You know the one that I would not want if I was going in is Pittsburgh against Montreal. I know we talked about this before, but if Price, if he gets it in his head, this is the only chance I'll only have to win the Stanley Cup, and believe me, it might be the only chance he'll ever have to win this. He might turn into if he ever turns into Carey Price of a few years ago, it's going to be tough getting a puck by him. Yeah,
and like we said before, you check Montreal's record on the road, and they're pretty deadly. They just
there won't be any crowd to give them a hard time in the playoffs.
That's right. They won't get booed if they're playoffs. If they're power plays.
They won't get the Bronx Carey Price.
Yeah, they're pretty good on
the
the road. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. Let's see. Toronto plays Columbus. New York plays Carolina. That should be there'll be no hit. That's what you'll call a Nolan Ryland no-hitter. Pittsburgh and Montreal, we talked about that. And New York Islanders at Florida. Now, that should be a strange one.
Yeah, well, I was reading a couple articles, and you talk about Carey Price. Bobrovsky for Florida is getting a lot of money, and he hasn't been playing very well in the playoffs. He played
lousy.
And then all he has to do is go on a run.
Yeah,
and everything's fine. So, you got to watch out for
I'd rather go against him than I would Price.
But that's another goalie that if he gets hot, you got to be careful of.
Boy, he was good a couple of years ago. I don't know what he signed all that big money for Florida, and he pulled a shoot on them, and they thought they were, Longo was hurt, and
he basically beat Tampa that year before.
Yeah, he can do it.
Yeah, he can do it.
So anyhow, I know that's confusing. It'll start. The Stanley Cup will start in August sometime. They won't leave till I think it's October. I think they'll be going till October. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough deal.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about confusing, so let's talk about the NHL draft. What a lot of people are very upset at. A lot of Detroit Red Wing fans are upset, and some of the Ottawa fans are upset. So, Cindy, I'll try to explain it to you.
Okay, is this going to be Draft 101 or Draft for Dummies for people like me?
I'm not, just because you're a woman, I'm not mansplaining it, but I'll try to explain what's going on.
I'll be the common denominator of dumb people that don't understand it, and it's very, very complicated.
And I'll add once in a while.
Okay, so what they do is, in the NHL draft, is the teams that don't make the playoffs, they put them in a lottery. And the reason they put them in a lottery is so a team won't tank the last half of the season to get the first
So they do this all the time.
They do this all the time.
Because there have been known for teams.
Well, I think the last time they did it was in Pittsburgh.
The team that tanked was Pittsburgh to get Mario. Mm-hmm. And they really did tank.
They figured it out.
Right. So they tanked. So they said, we can't do that anymore. So what they would do is The team that was the worst this year, which would have been Detroit, had the higher percentage to win. So they had an 18% chance to be pulled out of the lottery to go. And then the next two were Ottawa. Because Ottawa came in, and then Ottawa had the draft pick from the Carlson trade from San Jose. So they had 2 picks. So everybody from the teams that did make the playoffs had a specific percentage that they could win. For some reason, and I don't know why, and I've looked around, the NHL decided to say, we're going to take one team that gets knocked out in the first round of the playoffs this year, so the playoffs, and we're going to put them in this draft lottery.
And what's their percentage?
Theirs was like 35%.
So they had a big percentage, more so than the team that...
Well, a 35% chance not to get it, I guess.
Okay.
So I guess it's the way they do it. So there was a big chance. Like they thought there's no way.
Yeah.
Just, statistically, there's no way they're going to get it.
Right.
And,
a nightmare.
The team that got beat in the first round of the playoffs got the first pick. So now they have to have another draft lottery after the first round of the playoffs to see who's going to pick first overall.
And Alex Lafreniere.
Yeah.
And he's ready to play in the National Hockey League, superstar, going to be a superstar. He could be playing with Edmonton, Drysdale, and McDavid.
Yeah, you could, the worst case scenario would be if Pittsburgh loses to Montreal and then wins the lottery and gets the first pick, because they were the 7th best team in the National Hockey League. So but I mean, he'd be
playing with Malkin and Crosby.
Right, and I think all the stars are lining up for that, because
Lafreniere's happy.
Yeah, I guess he is. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, he could go right to a contending team. Like, just say Edmonton gets him. They would have maybe the 3 best young players in the league.
Now, Detroit's unhappy, but you have a feeling that Detroit is unhappy. They would like Lafreniere, but they could get a guy that they really like. And tell us about him. We watched him.
His name is Cole Perfetti, and he played for he plays for Saginaw in the OHL.
Yeah.
Had 111 points this year, and we saw him play for Vaughan Kings.
Yeah.
And he was...
Watched him play.
He was super fast. One of those kids that you notice right away, he was so fast. And a lot of times he was... But
he wasn't so good at the start.
Nah, beginning of the year, he was... You always say... this is what Dad calls guys that can really skate and don't do anything. Full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So he rode up and around the ice. He didn't do much. But then he kind of got his confidence with the puck, and then he put it together the last...
Did he ever?
...half of the season. And
now, Detroit likes him. Now, he has an association with Detroit somehow. Explain that.
Well, Saginaw is in Michigan, right? Saginaw, Michigan. And one of their owners, the Saginaw Spirits owners, is Ken Holland, who used to be the Detroit GM. Right?
Jimmy Delvano, is it?
Jimmy Devellano, sorry.
Yeah.
It was Jimmy Devellano's part owner. And not Ken Holland. He's with Edmonton. Jimmy Devellano is part owner of Saginaw, and he used to be GM of the Detroit Red Wings, and he was the guy that drafted Steve Yzerman. Now Steve Yzerman is GM of Detroit, and so what's
Michigan again.
In Michigan again. So what happens is they kind of have like a little thing going on that all the CFL or CHL import drafts, they take all Detroit guys who are drafted. So they take some Detroit drafts some Europeans. Then Detroit says to Saginaw, okay, take these guys in the CFL import draft, and then Detroit tells these guys to come over and play in the OHL, and they can keep an eye on them. And Jimmy Devellano, who's got a relationship with the thing, keeps an eye on them. So now
that's a good system.
It is.
It's a very good system.
It's sort of like when I played. They sponsored a hockey team. The Boston Bruins sponsored the Barrie Flyers. We all went to a Barrie Flyer camp or Boston Bruin camp.
Yeah, it would be good if the NHL could do that.
Absolutely.
Because it would help the team. It would help out the kids. Having a little bit.
Well, he'd say play this way, play that way.
Yeah. And so they like that. They like this Cole kid, and he's. I think watching him, I think he's like Lafreniere. I think he could be he could play in the NHL right now. He's that fast.
Well, I don't know. But then we go to the second. He won't be the second. He'll be with the fourth or fifth or something like
He'll
that.
be probably. I'm saying Detroit will take him fourth.
Yeah.
That's what I'm betting.
Now, the second guy will be Quentin Byfield, and we went to see him play at St. Andrews College. Is that what it's got?
Yeah.
And you're driving in there, honestly, it's like a movie.
Well, that's where all the rich people go, right?
No, I don't know about that.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
They'd have to be rich.
Oh,
They have to be-
yeah.
When
That
I look
tuition,
at all the grass is cut,
manicured
and all the stones. I remember stones were all painted white.
Oh yeah,
It really
was
looked like
something out of a movie. You
Yeah,
know?
it was like on a movie. So we
And
go to
beautiful-
the arena, nice arena
Oh,
too.
beautiful rink, yeah.
And they had. Remember, I questioned the guy about what did they have, but some sign up. Anyhow, don't trip going down. It's really it's meant for hockey, just for hockey. You said it's like you're right there. Now remember, and I remember Byfield playing, big guy, but he had a short stick. And as soon as I saw him, I said, a short stick. And I said, the only guy I know that big that had a short stick like that was Lindros. Good, now he can handle a puck, but you get hit a lot. Now, he didn't get hit in there, nor in junior because he's so big. But when he gets to National Hockey League, and then somebody on radio or something said they'll teach him, you can't, when a guy has a short stick, you cannot teach him to have a long stick because he feels uncomfortable. Now, you can handle a puck good with a short stick, and I'll tell you stories someday about that. But to take a kid that's used to a short stick and make him, now you can take a kid with a long stick and make him with am I getting confused, you people?
No, because I remember you going on about Jason Spezza when he used to play for the Ice Dogs. The length of his stick, it was really long.
Yeah.
You have a whole thing about the length of stick is a big deal.
But a short stick, you'll be bent over all the time, and you won't have your head up. You can do it in junior. You can do it in minor hockey. But when you get to the National Hockey League, well, of course, there's not too much hitting now, but you'll have your head down.
Yeah, Scott Stevens isn't playing anymore.
Scott Stevens, he's retired. But Scott Stevens, he used to lick his lips when he used to see guys cut into center ice. So anyhow, what I'm saying, he has a short stick, and he's pretty good. And we went to see him play.
Yeah, we saw him twice. We went to see Mississauga Steelhead and Sudbury play, and he's good. He's young though. Like he was almost a year younger than Lafreniere. He was 10 months younger, and that's a lot at that age.
At that age,
At that age, but he's 6'4", 215.
And he went to Sudbury, and he played very good too.
Yeah. So he had I think he had 82 points or something like that. So. We're betting LA's going to take him.
Yeah.
And there's a German kid that's probably going to go somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And then Ottawa's got 2 picks, right? They got 2 picks.
Yeah, Ottawa's got a lot of picks, boys. Guys got a lot of pressure on them. The GM there.
Everybody's kind of thinking probably with their first pick, they'll probably take a kid name that we saw play for the Toronto Marlies was
Drysdale.
Jamie Drysdale.
Yeah, I don't know if he's quite ready yet.
No, I think that's the thing, Dad. Like he's not small by any means. He's 6 foot, but he's a defenseman.
Yeah.
And if you watch him, he played in the World Juniors last year. And again, he's a lot younger than Lafreniere. He's like 8 months younger than Lafreniere, and he had to wear the cage and all that.
Yeah.
And he really played well in the World
No,
Juniors.
he'll be good for. Eventually he'll be great for.
But you think defensemen need to stay in the OHL?
You should never take a young defenseman and throw him in the National Hockey League. Toronto Maple Leafs did that. They did an experiment. They took 18-year-old kids, defensemen, and tried to do something with them. And what happened with them? They all got ruined. And they'll tell you like that. Because what you do is you lose confidence. Now, you can lose confidence when you're playing a winger or a centerman. It's okay. But when you lose confidence when you're playing defenseman and guys are walking around you, and that's what happened. They kept getting worse and worse.
Do you have that same philosophy for goalies like that?
Oh, nobody ever has a young goalie. I mean,
no.
Isn't it funny? Nobody ever drafts a.
That's what I was saying to him. Like you don't measure. No one's going to be drafting a goalie coming up. Or
we
anything?
We saw
probably not in the first round. No, very rarely do goalies go.
Because you never know. We saw a kid. We won't go into him because you feel bad. But we saw the best goaltender in the OHL, and he was just a little wee guy, eh?
Yeah.
And No, you
But,
said.
well, he was in the OHL. He was in the.
Oh yeah, it was minor
GTHL.
midget.
Yeah.
But he never got drafted.
No.
And he was and he was fantastic because all the goaltenders are all big now, and they cut the angle down. They come out, cut the angle down.
Yeah. And then people are asking what was going to happen if there's no season. Let's say like just something happens, then it's just going to go, and it's just going to go in order. Then
Boston will be happy about that.
No. I'm just saying if they can't get into like if something happens and the players get sick and they can't make the and they don't have a Stanley Cup winner.
Yeah, Detroit will be happy, and Boston.
No, this will stay.
Oh, this will stay.
Yeah,
Oh,
and then
boy. I didn't know that.
And then it just goes in order, normal order. So.
Well, anyhow, we've confused you enough. I'm confused, but they're the players that. And Lafreniere, whoever gets him, boy, it's going to be
Well,
terrific.
I think the most exciting thing is in the playoffs is going to be when the teams get knocked out and they have the draft. Who's going to get the first pick?
Now, the question is, I asked this: does it pay to get by the first round and then get beat out the second round, right?
Yeah.
Or get beat out the first round
And then go in the pool.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Yeah, and it's all everybody's the same.
That's a
odds.
really good point, Dad. Has anyone mentioned that in all the media?
don't know.
That's a
Well,
really good point.
Do you want to get beat out the first round? So
Well, if you're down, let's say you're down 2-0.
Yeah.
Thinking, well, what are we going to knock our brains out? And we get an 8.5 chance to
Percentage.
to get maybe one of the better players in the last couple of years.
well, this kid was fantastic in the junior, and he's big too, and he's ready to go, and like he's anxious to go. So wouldn't it be funny to see him with Edmonton?
So let me ask,
And put
when
him on
is
the wing with Daxel and McDavid.
Yeah.
so when is the draft then? Do they have to put it off till they know what's going to happen with the NHL? Or
I think the NHL draft is. I think they have to wait till after
But
Yeah,
after the
Yes.
Stanley Cup's over.
you said, Tim,
yeah,
the odds are that it worked out this way, this nightmare for the National Hockey League. What the odds got to be awful high. Who'd ever dream?
Yeah, everybody was saying, "Oh, it's fixed." Well, it's not fixed because this is exactly
The
what
NHL is not fixed.
No, because this is exactly what they didn't want. I could just see Gary Bettman, what he said.
Bill Daly.
Bill Daly.
Can you imagine that? What are the odds? And I bet you they went and had a few drinks that night.
Yeah, they weren't too happy. So, and then what else happened, Dad, this week? The Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and my buddy Jerome McGinley, and I remember a lot of things about him. He's the guy that passed, he had 625.
625 goals, yeah.
Yeah, 625 goals. And you know what I remember about him is Crosby, you could hear it on TV. I don't know how they could do it, but Inge. And
Iggy.
Iggy
was his name.
Iggy. He hollered and went up, man, I hate to say this, hit the referee's skate, went right to Crosby, and Crosby put it between the legs of, who's the guy?
Miller.
Miller. Oh, yeah, Ryan
For
Miller.
the Olympic goal. It was the golden goal.
And that was a winning goal. Was I happy to see that go in? Because I'll tell you one thing, the Americans were coming on.
Yeah. I think the one thing I remember, it's kind of saying it's not a nice thing, but one thing I remember with Joe McGinley is, remember that fight he had in Game 3?
Oh, with the
LeCavier.
Oh, boy.
And the
Here's
Stanley Cup Finals 2004.
two best players, and boy, and they were pretty good. I'd have to say maybe 5-4 and 1 even for McGinley, but I'll tell you, boy, they were throwing them. There was no pushing and shoving then. They were going.
you don't like to see those superstars
No,
fight.
I never liked it, but it was really something to see.
It was the two captains said, "Okay, we're going to go."
Settle
it
it.
was a rough series, and they said, "Okay, we're going to settle this whole thing."
Everybody, everybody talks about controversial goals and all that thing. Okay, Dad, Game 6,
Yeah,
Flames are up 3-2. They win the game. They win the Stanley Cup. There's about 6 minutes to go. They're on the power play, and Martin
Gillian, yeah.
he looked like he scored. Was
the
it
guy
in?
come over? I can still see it now. He come over and scored, and the guy put his foot in. I said on television it was in. That means Calgary wins the Stanley Cup. But no, they didn't count it a goal. But I think it was in. Anyhow,
You could see the You could see it was obvious. You could see the red line, and you could see the white between that and the puck.
Why they didn't call it is beyond me. I don't
know. Well, you know what they said? This was from what I heard. Their excuse is that if the puck was not over the line but in the air, it would look the same.
Yeah.
So
I think the way they've got it.
Yeah, they
toned down.
Now they would have they know for sure. But Habby Bullen kicked it. He was a goalie for Tampa. He kicked it out. Really, it was just bing bing. And the play went on for about 3 or 4 minutes.
And I said, "That's in.
They looked and they lost in double overtime. And I remember who was the coach? McCammon was the coach. Bob McCammon was the coach. I think so.
Yeah.
So for Calgary, yeah. And they went back to Tampa and lost.
Oh yeah. And I remember. Well, maybe I should say this. He was being interviewed right after the game, and I was sitting on the thing, and the interviewer asked him, "How do you feel?" And he looked at me and he said, "How do I feel? How do I feel? I just got beat out, and this guy asked me how I feel." Anyhow, I still say that puck was in. I still say, and everybody in Calgary think it was in, and I'm sure it was in. If they had today's science or whatever it is, they'd see that goal was in.
For sure. And then Dad, Marian Hossa, he was another one that got in.
Yeah, and how many goals did he get?
525 goals.
We won't say anything about Pat Verbeek.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do a whole number on him and everything like that. Kevin Lowe, he won a lot of Stanley Cups, and he was a mainstay.
A lot of people, let's be real, a lot of people were kind of questioning that, but he was, the third best defenseman on a team that won 6 Stanley Cups.
Yeah, and he was always there, and I just think, a lot of people said he shouldn't have been in, but
you just can't go by stats, especially for defensemen. And then,
he was a mainstay back there.
Right. So the top player was Coffey and Huddy, and then Kevin Lowe, and then he killed the penalties, and he did. He
was always there.
He was the unsung hero for it. And then you had Ken Holland.
Ken Holland he won a lot of cups he was in Detroit. He was lucky. Tell us about the two guys, two Swedes.
Datsuk and Zetterberg. I mean, they drafted like 100th, and the other one was 200th. And then you're winning the lottery, and these guys become NHL superstars, right? And
if they were so good, why didn't he pick them the first round?
Well, they say, well, we knew that they were going to be superstars. And you go, yeah, that's why you let teams pass on them 200 times, right? So, but you won the lottery, and you got Lindstrom and all that. You can't knock them. And then for the women was their goalie, Kim St. Pierre.
You said that she was dynamite, that they would have won.
To be honest, I don't watch women's hockey that much, doing the Olympics. And I don't think that Team Canada would have won the Olympic gold medals without her.
Remember the last one? The puck, they shot it, and it weaved all the way down and hit the post.
Yeah, that was in Korea. That was in Sochi, I think.
Yeah.
And that was like a movie, that game. They were
down by... Everybody weaved down and hit the post.
Down by 2 goals.
Yeah.
They ended up with a minute to go, and they ended up winning it.
I have somebody said that I don't watch women's hockey and stuff like that. I was the first guy. I told a story about Hazel forcing me to go up to watch it when I first came from Colorado. She'd be there, and I could see that the women loved hockey. The girls loved hockey as much as the guy. I paid my way to Ottawa and went on TV in Ottawa and the whole deal.
And I remember you guys went to Kitchener.
Went to Kitchener,
and we got the photo of Dell dropping the puck.
Yeah.
Well, because they were going to go over in the Olympics, and they put a rose for that game in Kitchener. They put a rose
and
in memory
diverse.
Pardon?
I'm not diverse. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, you're not diverse enough. But that was a great honor that the women's Olympic team had put a rose on their sweater honor of Mom. Yeah. And also, I mean, they like you, and you like women's hockey.
Yeah. No, I'm not getting into that. Someday I'll get into that. But anyhow.
But anyway, she's well deserving, as they say. Yeah, she was the backbone for those gold medal.
Yeah,
gold medal.
She was dynamite.
The U.S. There's a couple of times the U.S. had them bottled in, and she was
kicking them out.
She played like
well deserved.
And the last guy, buddy of yours, Dougie Wilson.
Dougie Wilson been in the I don't know I been in the league a long time. God, he's been in the league a long time.
Man,
I'm not too
played
thrilled.
for Brian Kilray. I got to tell a Doug Wilson story though. Okay, so this would have been, I forget what year it was, not too long ago, maybe 5 years ago. We were in Halifax and doing the prospect game. And so it was Dad and Brian and Bert was there, and Dougie Wilson was there, and Bert was there. So we went to, they had a little hospitality room for Team Cherry, and there was an awful lot of beer in that room. And so there was Dougie Wilson, there was about 5 or 6 guys.
Yeah.
And the beer started to flow, and Brian Kilray is really good at saying, one more.
And you go like this, just one more?
Just one more. So, it's 10 o'clock, it's 11 o'clock, it's 12 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock, it's 1:30, it's 2 o'clock. We got to be at the rink at like 8.
Next morning.
And it's like 3 o'clock. So Doug, he's just sitting there and he goes, oh my God, Brian. He goes, Brian, I got to go to bed. He goes,
to keep up with you and Brian, Dad.
So I got to go to bed, and I left so Doug Wilson left. I left at around 3:45, and then I'm down in the lobby at 7:30 because to catch the bus to get the rink at 8. And I think you and Brian were hurting a little bit.
Oh, you know what? I never ever coached one of those games I didn't have a hangover.
You always looked like you had a headache.
Yeah, no, and early when in those games, those prospect games, I used to have to do a banquet. And I remember one time I was doing a banquet, the sweat was just pouring on, and Brian was sitting, him and Bert were sitting they were sitting down having lunch, eh? And they used to have, I think that was a lot better. They used to have now they don't do it. But anyhow, they used to have a luncheon, and I had to be the main speaker, and the sweat was just pouring on me. I had an awful hangover.
Yeah, you guys were hurting that. In fact, Brian, I remember Brian's in the lobby, and he goes out, and it's nice and cool out. You open the door, and you could just see, oh, it's so nice and cool. He lights up a cigar, and I said, Brian, the bus is leaving. He goes, you know what? I think I'm going to walk in this cool air.
Anyhow, we used to have a lot of fun.
I've been in that room with you and Brian and everyone, and it's like everyone comes and visits you, and it's the conversations and the stories. People just used to love to visit you and Brian in in that room.
I didn't do the prospect game. Neither did Brian.
No.
Well, for obvious reasons.
Well,
I'm not diverse enough.
That's
and,
right.
Another good time we had was in Niagara Falls. The Ice Dogs really did a good job doing the prospect game.
Yeah, the owner there, Bill and Denise, I think Burke.
Yeah.
They had some beer afterwards, and we went in the dressing room. Remember, Cindy? Were you in that dressing room?
I believe so. Well, I went in the dressing room. They were in that room. Yeah, and then they had beer there, and
had a few pops. And Brian, he's funny anytime, but when he has a few beers and.
He's funny.
Yeah.
The stories you guys tell. So what happened? Did you take a picture or what?
So that afternoon, Bill and Denise had their 2 dogs, and we were taken with all the coaches and everything, and one of the dogs bit Bobby.
Really?
Yeah. And Bobby doesn't drink at all now, and I don't know where he leaves. The only reason he came was because, I hate to say it, because he's a good friend of mine. And he did not want to, because they bug him so much. I mean, they bring people in the dressing room and where he was.
A couple of we won't name the places. A couple of them weren't very good. And it was just like a 3-day autograph signing sessions, which you don't want. And the kids are trying to get ready and stuff. But some of the teams, like I said, Niagara did a really good job.
They did a good job,
kind of. Getting the kids focused and everything.
I usually give them $100 all the time after.
Yeah, because you keep anyway.
I could remember the first prospect game, and do you remember? It was at the Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens.
Yeah.
Our sound guy here was like 3 years old, and they didn't have enough people to fill the arena because it was completely empty, and we actually got to sit behind the bench to make the rink look big, and that was the first time of the prospect game. That's
nobody knew.
Nobody knew it, and I think of how it's grown on TV, big monster sponsors, and I think of the first game we did. Well, Cindy, you got to sit behind the bench. I go, I don't want to sit behind the bench and all that.
Yeah.
And Dell was playing with his little Buzz Lightyear things. He's only 3 years old behind it just to fill in the rinks. How it's blossomed into a money-making deal for everybody, right? So
No, they don't do it. No, I think they don't call them an or or cherry anymore. I thought they would. I think it's red and whites or something.
colors now or something.
Yeah. I mean, but we had a lot of fun. Bobby, you know, Brian Kilray did and him and Bert did the real.
Yeah, Brian was the one that changed the lines and the whole deal, and the yelling. Oh my goodness, he yells behind
boy,
the bench.
he took it serious. I remember there was a number 1 draft choice, and the guy went to.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and then another time, one of the guys, Daniel Bier, would not come off fast enough. He's bench him. I said, how can I bench him again? I don't care, bench him. You know, I was taking care
His
of him.
big line for yelling, it took me a while to figure out what he was saying was get off, get off.
Well, it's not fair if somebody stays on too long, because then you don't get the same chance.
Yeah.
And Bob and Brian and Burke always used to have the guys change, and nobody and the next guy up would kill the penalties too. You would never.
Oh, you
the
didn't
only
have
guy we ever did was Gilbert Burley. Remember the guy?
Yeah.
And he had 2 goals. And
It was in Vancouver, and he played for the Giants.
Yeah, and we wanted him to get a hat trick. And who did I go to? I went one of the Ryan brothers, I think.
Like it was, yeah.
Yeah, Danny Ryan. And I said, do you mind if Brule goes out to try to get a hat trick? You know, Vancouver and that. And he says, no. He says, and he benched himself.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, he did. They were good kids. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun.
Should we tell the whole story of that Vancouver one or not?
About Crosby not?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
Well, we should tell just quickly, because everybody says, well, you kind of had a little thing going with Crosby.
Well, I didn't have the thing going. I told him to stop, the same as I did with every rookie and Mario. And when Mario only first got up, I didn't.
Subban. Ty. You even told Ty to knock it off.
I give it to Ty.
Yeah.
When you first come up, you mind your own business. And so anyhow, Crosby didn't show up.
Yeah, because he got back from the World Juniors.
And I felt sorry for the owner there.
Yeah, because they were doing Burley versus Crosby and all that.
Yeah.
But
and he didn't show up because he was.
I think he was mad at Dad.
He was rebelling.
Or his father was
I never
mad
thought
at
of
Dad.
that. I never thought of that.
Please.
I never did. He said he had a bad back. Anyhow.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we wanted him to get the hat trick, not to get on with that, because
Michael, but that was a good banquet. Michael Bublé.
Oh, that was great. Tell the people who was up on stage at Quinn's place. There was Sather, wasn't there?
Yeah, Glenn Sather, you, Bobby, Michael Bublé.
Yeah.
And I forget.
There was someone else.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was sitting there and I couldn't believe what I was witnessing, because you and who was getting into it? Sather.
Glenn Sather.
And Glenn Sather and you were getting into it, I think. And Michael Bublé was sitting there, and I was sitting with his dad, and he was sitting there like a little kid in the middle of a schoolyard fight, not knowing what to say, almost put his hands, okay, you two, let's make friends. You know, it was like when Mike Myers
said something. He was a friend of mine too.
And
he was kind of like joking.
He was just joking.
But you took
the National Hockey League. I remember now.
What did he say?
He said something about Don's always fighting with the National Hockey League. I never fight, and I never had a fight with the National Hockey League. And he just said it as a joke.
I really felt sorry for Michael Bublé, because it was getting a little out of hand, and everyone,
Sather and I going back and forth.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
can I tell the quick story that Michael Bublé told? Can I tell a funny story? So he's from Vancouver, right?
Yeah.
Big star. He's from
part
Vancouver.
owner of the Giants. Yeah.
And he was, he's a big fan of the Canucks.
Of course.
So he was on tour when Vancouver was playing Boston in the finals. So, and he says, I'm watching every game. And he says, I look at my schedule. And he said, Game 7, he goes, I'm playing in all places, Boston.
Oh boy.
So, and Game 7, remember, was back in Vancouver. So he said to his manager, he says, well, if there's a Game 7, he says, I'm not going to Boston. He says, I'm going to the game. He says, well, but, geez, he says, this has been sold out. It's sold out. We got 15,000 people. And he goes, I don't care. He says, if it's Game 7, I'm on a plane. I'm going to Vancouver. I have my tickets. I'm going to Game 7. So Game 7 happens. So he says to the manager, cancel the cancel the tour because I'm not going. So they go to Game 7. Of course, Boston beats Vancouver in Game 7. So now he's got to do the makeup. So he goes out and he does the makeup, and he's in Boston, or he's in Massachusetts, I guess, out of Boston or Massachusetts. So he's out. He goes, I'm singing. He says the crowd's really into it, and he says, I'm doing all my thing, and he says they're really into the thing, and they're singing along, and I got the mic, and I put it out there, and they're singing all the lyrics, and he goes, they're really into it. So he says, it's time to talk to the audience, and he says, well, I appreciate everybody coming back. He says, I'm sorry I had to delay. He goes, but I got to be honest, why I delayed. He says, I went to the game. He goes to Boston, and I went to Game 7 of Boston and Vancouver, and all the fans cheered. And he says, well, I'm from Vancouver, so I was cheering for Vancouver. And he says, they turned on me like you can't. They started to boo. They were throwing stuff. They were giving me the finger. People were walking out. And he says, I'm trying to sing, and they're screaming at me. Vancouver sucks. He goes, I was just
those Boston people, you can't beat those Boston fans. I'll tell you, boy. Remember the Gallery Gods?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's funny, Tim. His dad's a great guy. I sat with his dad during one of the Giants games and all that. It's down to earth.
The seventh game was in Boston, eh?
No, it was in Vancouver.
Are you sure? I think it was in Boston.
No, seventh game was in Vancouver.
Yeah, you're right, Tim. It was in Vancouver. You just looked it up. And I remember.
Remember they rioted.
Yeah, and Ron and I, we couldn't get a cab back. And we had to walk in amongst them, and we were walking in alleyways and everything because they were rioting. Remember, they were burning tires and everything in Vancouver, and we made it back to the hotel. I don't know. We left right away. I left right away, and I'm leaving right away because they were really going in Vancouver. Remember, they burnt tires and everything.
Yeah, they smashed windows. Yep.
Yeah. Anyhow, Cindy, we're going to end this here. It's been going on long enough.
Yeah,
and,
this was a long,
the longest one. How about talking? You we'll leave it up to you, and we'll end it with the Don Cherry's pet rescue. Go ahead.
Well, as I said, if everyone is interested in helping pet rescue, and go to the Coop, just go COOP Inc. INK coopinc.ca, and you'll see.
Do that again.
coopinc.ca. Okay. Right. And go there, and that will be the online auction, and hopefully you'll bid, and they've got it's down to a science, these online auctions.
And I give cufflinks, I give shirts, I give ties, and I give the jackets.
And don't forget your corsage. You have a rose corsage on it.
Corsage on there.
In memory of Mom, so you get a full ensemble.
And a picture personally autographed.